So let me share my slides with you. Can you see the slides? Can you
Yes, we can see them.
Perfect. Very good. So, what is at stake? What does this document talks about? Of course, the main topic of the document is really enabling the full transition of the European economy to a data economy. And I mean, I am speaking to you as a quarantined person who cannot leave his house now, because you know what is going on all over the world, basically. And you understand that the internet can bring the added value that the internet can bring to the economy and the value of a data economy. So the core of this document really deals with the data economy. It also deals with growing data technology and what is the European in this enigmatic shift and change. I would say the European vision in a wider geopolitical context. And again, we have many examples of from what is happening these days on this. First of all, is the role of the data flows in the digital single market, and I would say widely in the European single market. And then is what has to be the proper European approach to this, which is an approach which is able to conjugate technological development, but also the respect of fundamental rights and therefore human-centric Internet of Things. So these are like really the building block and pillar. And many of you, the people that have worked in the LSPs, as for instance, on the white paper that we have drafted together, showing what the different LSPs have done in the context of their deployments, know how this notion of human-centric IoT is central. The data strategy published by the European Commission deals with different topics. The most important here for you: availability of data, using of public sector information by business and vice versa, sharing and use of privately held data by other companies. So how the companies can enhance and facilitate the data sharing among them. Imbalances in the market power, of course. And here there is another fundamental European issue, which is antitrust law, for instance. Data interoperability and quality, data governance, data infrastructure and technologies. And here, if you read the paper, you will find that there is a lot of discussion, of course, on the Gaia X development and generally speaking about the technological solution enabling cloud. Also in a kind of transatlantic relationship with the US, there have been several issues which have been discussed recently. How we plan to tackle this issue and how the European Commission plans to tackle these issues. Of course, individuals need to continue to be able to exercise their fundamental rights, which are at the core of the European constitutional projects. There is the issue of skills and data literacy, both from the people who are called to operate in the data economy, but also I would say for the wider population. And then there is the issue of the cybersecurity, and connected with the big amount of work that certain institutions like, for instance, ENISA are doing on this. If you think about the EU Cybersecurity Act, the old conversation and discussion which are going on, for instance, on the issue of cybersecurity certification. What is the strategy which is proposed there? One building block of the strategy is a cross-sectorial governance framework for data access and use. So there are very, very concrete steps which are suggested in the data strategy. There is a proposal for a legislative framework for governance of common European data spaces, which is really one of the most important things of this data strategy. There is the European Union plans to adopt and implement an act on high-value data sets. By 2021, a data act should be approved, which, you know, the data act has to be combined from a legislative point of view with the GDPR, and then an analysis on the importance of the data in the digital economy. There are enablers which are discussed. So of course, the first enabler is investment in data and strengthening Europe's capability and infrastructure for hosting, processing, and using data and interoperability. So an important investment in high-impact projects on European data spaces, the launch of European Cloud Service Marketplace, integrating the full stack of cloud service offering, and the creation of an EU regulatory cloud rulebook. So more work for lawyers here, especially in the case of the cloud. what are the competencies which, according to data strategists, are needed? You need to empower individual investors.
Pasquale,
For
Pasquale,
the commission, to explore and yes, yes,
Pasquale, sorry
yes.
if I'm interrupting you, but I can see some messages from people that ask for the presentation in full screen, if you can, and if you can repeat just these last contents because the audio there wasn't so fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I will repeat from here, from the kind of strategy which is envisaged in the document. And of course, you will find all the details in the documents when you're gonna read it. It's not a lengthy document. It's about 35, 36 pages. Let's see in the chat what I was able to present myself. Okay. Yeah, there are other people joining us. So what is the strategy that the European Union is presenting in the document? The strategy is very concrete with a very clear roadmap, legislative roadmap there. So there are steps and there are certain acts that the Commission envisaged to adopt in the next few years. So they envisage a proposal for a legislative framework for governance of common European data spaces, an adoption of implementing act on high-value data sets. Then there is the proposal to approve a data act by 2021, so quite soon, and an analysis on the importance of the data in the digital economy. There is the issue, of course, of competence. You need to empower individuals if you're going to make these huge investments in the data economy. So you need to empower the technical people who are going to operate in the economy, but you also need to empower the wider population, which then needs to be able to adopt and use the tools and have the skills and the SMEs. So the Commission puts an important stress on the issue of data portability. So the right for individuals under the GDPR to give them more control over who can access and use the machine-generated data. If the flows of data is going to raise, then you have to find a new solution for data portability. That's quite obvious. Now, an important thing for you, especially those who are involved in the different verticals like e-health, smart cities, and any other kind of different verticals in the IoT domain, is the list of the common European data spaces in strategic sectors which are envisaged by the strategy. So let me just list them for you. So the Commission envisaged a common European industrial manufacturing data space, common European Green Deal data space, common European mobility data space, common health data space. And then there are different solutions in different verticals. So for instance, in the case of e-health, of course, will be of tremendous importance to allow the sharing of data through the different national European health system. Then there is the European financial data space, European energy data space, European agricultural data space, European data space for public administration, common European skills and data space. So you can see already from this list of common data spaces that what is envisaged in the data strategy is quite huge. And my take on this is that if we are going to accomplish 50 or 60% of what is going to there, is going already to be a huge transition. We need to add that all these things which I have listed to you needs to be read in conjunction with the AI white paper that the Commission has published the same day, if I'm not wrong, February 19, which is actually now open for comment until May 19. So I know that there are several organizations, SMEs, or research institutions which are aiming to contribute with the consultation. And I think that the Commission really looks forward to receive feedback on the document which they have published. So this was the general introduction to the document, and now I leave the floor to my colleague Alice, which will drive you more in detail into the kind of content of the data strategy. Alice, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you, Pasquale, for your intervention, and welcome to everyone that has decided to connect with us in this afternoon. So I have, firstly, I have to thank you and my colleague Francesco to have invited me to present this ngiot project. And now I'm trying to share my screen and I need your confirmation if you can see it now from someone of you.
We don't see your slides.
We don't see your slides right now.
A moment.
Yeah, now we are seeing it. Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, here we are. So as Pasquale said to you, we are talking about the European data strategy that is becoming one of the most important strategies that the European Commission is talking about in this moment. As we can see, the European can rely on a strong legal framework, as you know, and also can benefit from the internal market that is constructed in the European Union. The European Commission has decided to focus its attention on data because an attention to the usage of data can increase the productivity, can increase also the competitiveness on markets, but also can improve lives of individuals. As Pasquale well said to you, this data strategy has been presented both in the communication on shaping Europe's digital future, as you can see in this slide written, and also in the white paper on AI. So this is a brief list of EU actions taken from the 2014. These are the main legal instruments adopted by the European Commission, but not only we have to say better, from European institution to protect data of individuals from a legal point of view, but also from another point of view, which is the engagement with other countries to ensure an adequate level of protection of personal data, not even though they are not part of the European Union. Okay, so what is the stake? We have just a bit discussed about the issue. So this slide shows to you a prediction about the increasing volume of data. You can see this graphic that shows you the zettabyte that will increase in this year. So the data volume that increased in this year from 2018. This was the start of the scheme, and just to reach the 2025 with 175 zettabyte of data volume. And for that reason, European Commission have decided to take into serious consideration this large amount of data changement. And here we can see how data have been processing till now. And now we can say that the most part of data are processing with centralized computing facilities, but in few years, the perspective will change a lot. So this is just to give you an input. So the European Commission takes, as I said, into serious account the importance of data for the society. This is for to make people more conscious about the fact that a good assessment and a good management of data can conduct to live better. Both in an individual case, but also in the framework of the policies created at a European level, so in a government level. And the sharing of data that can also be a positive point in creating climate and environment policies and policies about energy consumption, but also about product, material, and food traceability. So the perspective is just remain important also for the economy, so for the businesses activities. And this means that for example, for the startups and the small and medium enterprises, data will constitute an essential resource in order to know how to act on the market. Okay. Until now, okay, maybe I can just stop a minute for asking you if I'm going too fast or too slow, and if there are some questions till now, I can stop for a while.
Thank you, Alice. For me, it's fine. Let's see if there's somebody has some question. You can just.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. If anybody has a question, feel free to intervene.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go on.
Yeah.
Maybe one quick question, because you've mentioned in the slide before a lot about SMEs and startups, and we're seeing that there's quite a lot of concentration on these specific company types, let's say, while we are also getting quite a lot of notion from the larger corporations that they have also quite difficult times on building these kind of data lakes. Why are they not also in the picture here? Because like for them, it's also essential.
Yeah. You're right.
Can I answer to the? Can I try to answer to this question? I'm Francesco Capparelli. I will intervene after, but this question somehow replies to some questions that I would like to pose to the European Commission. I mean, I think I have an answer, and it's an interpretation of what we saw in the data strategy. This interpretation comes from the point of view that saw the application of GDPR going through all the European countries and be taken seriously from some corporations for corporations that have a lot of data, but less seriously from other little business like SMEs. Yeah, and the fact is that SMEs has to be very careful in their own business, and biggest corporation has the value, the money, I would say, to be compliant with a new legislative framework without posing at risk their own business. And that is why I think that European Commission is trying to make easier for those kind of businesses to be compliant with the norms in order to be compliant with the market and the data market. And this is an interpretation that I would like to give, but I'm open to confront with you, with all of you, about this, not only on the possibility that this market can be constituted by compliance with norms like GDPR and not because of norms like GDPR. But it comes from a reflection about the possibility of a future in which the competition among SMEs and startups and big companies is at as a value the personal data and the data. So Europe is trying to spread awareness about the value of the data, even in the smaller business, in order for them to be competitive in the market. This is our interpretation, but I mean, it's open to discussion.
Thanks a lot. That was a good answer.
Thank you. Do we have any other intervention? If not, Alice, you can continue.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, we were talking about, opla. And so we are facing now a great, a great changement in the opportunities that arise from technological change. We can see some new technological infrastructures like cloud compute and quantum and other digital solutions that will be available in few times. And the EU Commission is really faithful that EU has the potential to be as successful as other players in the world, such as big players like the US, that has made another choice about the storage of data space. As you can read, they have chosen to give the data space power to private sector. And or for example, another great player is the China that exercise a strong control on the data of individuals, and the European Union prefer to adopt another vision on how to assess this data economy for the future. And so the vision, the vision is how the Commission calls the objective of the European data strategy. In fact, the Commission is working inside the framework where European values and fundamental rights have a crucial importance. The Commission does not forget that the human being is and should remain at the real center of the debates. This point has been discussed together with the importance of data today, because data, unlike almost most economic resources, can be replicated at almost zero cost, and does not prevent a simultaneous use by different person or organization. And these potentials should be put to work to address the needs of individuals, and can create a value both for the economy and the society. And in order to be able to release this potential, it's fundamental to ensure a better access to data and also a responsible usage from the end user. In order to create this framework, the EU main objective is to create this attractive policy environment, creating a single European data space. That means a single market for data, where personal but also non-personal data can creating more value, and at the same time can boost economical and societal growth. This European data space will be a great opportunity, also for businesses. This because if businesses can act inside this framework, these opportunities permit them to work in a space where data can flow within the European space and across different sectors, inside the same, as we said, inside the same European rules and values, and they have the certainty that these principle will be respected. And also another advantage to work inside this European data strategy framework, this European framework, is that the use of data is fair and more clear. So this is the approach the European Commission want to apply inside, but also with international data flows, trying to find a solution to handle also the data flows coming from extra-EU countries. So until now, there are several issues that are holding the European Union back from realizing this potential in the project. And one of the most impactful, but as you can imagine, is the fragmentation. Yeah, the fragmentation is intended both in each member state, in the characteristics of in each member state, but also in the action that each member state is taking at the moment, in this moment, because some states have already started with internal policies, other states are only at in a first step of the reasoning about this issue. And so the Commission see the real importance to communicate from one state to another to take a common action. One of the main issue that that is a problem together with the fragmentation is the availability of data. This is why the real value of data lies in the possibility to use but also reuse the data produced. And currently there is not enough data available for innovative reuse. And so that means that we have to consider this issue, and the Commission has decided to group in three different groups these availability data issues on the basis on who is the data holder, who is the data user, and on which is the nature of data involved. Here you can see a scenario. I won't read you the slide because you can do by yourself, but just to give you an idea, this is how the data sharing can be involved different stakeholders. In particular, GNB stays for government and businesses. And in each of these hypotheses, you can see how the limits can impact the impossibility to share the data between these two players. Just to give you an example, if you want to take the first one, the government to business data sharing is concerned the impossibility to share the data that have been created inside the public sector, and the impossibility for the for the small and medium enterprises to use this kind of data. But the crucial point is that this data, since they are government data, they should be public. And so this is a great limit to the enterprises. And another issue in this hypothesis is also the impossibility to use sensitive data that are productive, for example, in the health sector, to remaining in a GDPR compliance framework. So other main issues encountered from that the Commission pointed out are the imbalance in market power. And as you can imagine, since there are different players on the market, this means that they are different powers. They can act differently on the market. And concerning data, this traduced in, for example, large online platform where a very small number of players can accumulate huge amounts of data. And this traduces in an important competitive advantage deriving from the use and of the quality and richness of this data. Another point, issue point is the data on interoperability and quality. These two factors, together with other factors, are really important for the exploitation of data value. And especially we can see in the context of AI deployment. And data producers, but also users, have identified significant interoperability issues which impede the combination of data from different sources within sectors. And so the application of standard and share compatible formats can traduce in a facilitation of the use of this data through a rolling plan for ICT standardization. The other main crucial point is the data governance, which plays a central role both in from a societal point of view and an economical point of view. Okay, here we are. And another great point is the data infrastructure and technologies, because as we can see, digital transformation depends really on the availability of these instruments, and both in data centers, but also at the edge. And in this perspective, the European Union needs to reduce its technological dependencies in these strategic infrastructures. The European Commission has pointed out two main issues, focusing on this on a supply side and on a demand side. From the supply side, the European Union would like to reduce this dependence on external providers, because that means more vulnerable because that this situation can expose more to data threats, and these data threats for in a framework where we are using external providers may introduce a loss of great investments made by the European Union, but also because if the providers used are external, these providers may be subject to different legislation and consequently to different jurisdiction. And this can create problems because not all the jurisdiction effectively respects European principle. So in this context, the European Union is really working to, as you can read, also to mitigate the effect of other legislation, for example, with a proposal between European Union and US in order to facilitate the cross-border access to electronic evidence, always respecting fundamental rights of individuals. And another great action that the European Union is making is in the framework of the Council of Europe, always with the same purpose. On the other side, so in the demand side, we see that there is a low cloud uptake in Europe, because only one company on four uses cloud services. And also there is a significant divergence in cloud uptake existing between member states, because we have businesses that use only at 10% this cloud solution, and we passed from this 10% to 65% in the European Union. And the same is for the European public sector, that doesn't use very much this opportunity, and this reduces to less efficiency in the digital public services. Yeah, I think, yeah, okay. I can go on if someone wants to stop me somehow, or just asking something. Here I am. Also in the chat, I don't know, as you prefer.
Let's do another quick round of questions and then you can finalize your presentation.
Okay.
Let's see if somebody wants to intervene now.
Okay. So I can take a breath.
Yeah. Anybody, either in the chat or just intervene?
Okay.
We will then do the final round of session.
Yeah, sure. And another great issue, is the empowerment of individuals to make them aware of their rights. In fact, individuals individuals value very much the high level of protection that has been granted from the GDPR and the e-privacy legislation. But however, it has been observed that they suffer from the absence of technical tools and standards that make this exercise simple. And we have seen in the GDPR the right to portability that have created a great opportunity to enable novel data flows and can really foster the competition, is a really competitive provision. Yet, even though if we have those provision, as a result of this design, we have practical limitation to enable this data use and reuse in the digital ecosystem following this provision. And since we have an increasingly large amount of data that are generated by consumers when they use, for example, IoT devices and digital services as well, consumer may be faced with risk of discrimination, unfair practices, for example, the lock-in effects. And so this consideration of consumer and innovation empowerment underline the provision on data access and reuse of payment service directive, for example. In response to this situation, we have new tools, for example, My Data, just to cite one, that have been developed to permit them to manage personal data and have more awareness about their usage.
No, ma certo, c'è tutto un contorno che bisogna curare, ma è ovvio.
And another great point is the skills and data literacy. So another empowerment from this side, which consists in focus on the unfulfilled position in the area, but also on the empowerment of the data literacy, which is relatively low, and also with a participation gap. And the European Commission has understood that the absence of this discussion could compromise the capability to master the challenges arising from data. And just to conclude, we have the last crucial point that has been pointed out by the European Commission concerning the cybersecurity. And in this area, Europe has already developed an already comprehensive framework to support member states, but also businesses inside the European Union and citizens to tackle cybersecurity threats and attacks. And it is expected a great role from this cybersecurity in order to guarantee the threats in this cybersecurity challenge. And however, this new data paradigm, where less data will be stored in data center and more data will be spread in a pervasive way, maybe closer to the user at the edge, will bring new challenges for cybersecurity. And this will be essential to preserve data security when data will be exchanged. So I will let the floor to my colleague Francesco that will continue with...
Sometimes there are people that are not on mute that enters in our conversation. Pasquale, if you can.
Yeah, I'm trying to mute them.
Thank you. I mean, you can actually heard that all these people are Italian, and I thank Alice. I really thank Alice because for her valuable contribution, if we didn't know the position of Europe on data strategy, thanks to her now, we all know what is the position of Europe on that front. As you can see, everyone here, we come from different countries, but there are a lot of Italians because there's a situation in which we are right now. In Italy, we are everyone close in our apartments right now, and this is a thing that actually affects even the data strategy, because as my colleague Pasquale said, there are different topics in which that are contained in the Annex A of the data strategy, in which Europe would like to be the leader. Those strategic sectors of public interests are the Green Deal, the industrial manufacturing space, the data mobility, but something that is really important right now is the common European health data space. I would like to highlight this thing because I would like to trigger a debate on that. Right now in Italy, we are facing an emergency, and this emergency could have been dealt with the usage of data among the public administration, the usage of data, of the sharing of data in a cybersecurity perspective and in a privacy perspective, but the usage of data for the health providers. This is an occasion that Italy lost because we didn't use this kind of data in order to prevent the disease, in order to deal with this emergency. But the data strategy right now imposes to Italy and to every single European country a series of reflection on the use of personal data and data in general in the public sector, in the healthcare sector, and how we can enhance what we are doing with personal data in the public sector, in the health sector, and how we can prevent situations like the one that we are living, that all Italians are living right now, to prevent that this situation happen. This reflection also stems from what the strategy has stated, because it's an opportunity that we have to take as countries, we have to take as institutions, we have to take as parts of consortium of European projects that are trying to make Europe a better place, a place in which our rights and our freedom are respected when our data, our personal data is used, a place when we can be considered the leader in a geopolitical chessboard, because Europe is unique within the geopolitical chessboard, and we can take advantage of our know-how, of our experience, or our cultural heritage. There are things in the data, there are points, there are issues in the data strategy that I would like to point out and I would like to highlight, just in order to trigger the debate. I started with the health issue because it's something we are all living. But there are other things like what we already dealt with, competition law and personal data protection. Those two kind of legislation, those two frameworks are getting together because the company that has more data has more possibility than the other company that has less data to be more competitive. So competition law will be shifted in the personal data protection framework. And if Europe doesn't provide a unique framework for that, the market will do that for Europe. And Europe has to be prepared in order to deal with this kind of situation. Because if Europe wants to enhance the infrastructure that can contribute to the creation of an European data pools that can enable big data analytics, machine learning based software in order to be trained in a manner that is compliant with data protection legislation, this manner has to be compliant with competition law too. Because European companies has to be protected and has to be protected from the possibility to be left out from a geopolitical and from a global market in the data. This is the first thing, and feel free to interrupt me whenever you want to take the opportunity to debate on that. The fact is that I started with the health issue, and then I shifted to the competition law issue, just because in the data strategy, at page 7 of the data strategy, there was a sentence that that has to be highlighted. The fact that the use of aggregated and anonymized social media data can, for example, be an effective way of complementing the reports of general practitioners in case of an epidemic. So Europe is ready from a theoretical point of view. Europe is ready to deal with data in a case of emergency. Maybe European countries are not. Maybe companies are not. Maybe public administration is not ready to use data in order to be prepared for this kind of situation. And this is a paradox, because I mean, we are trying to understand that we need to create something like Schengen, but for personal data and for not personal data, in order for us to train our machine learning, in order for us to enhance our small and medium enterprises. But what is happening right now is that private companies got many personal data, many sensitive data, according to Article 9 of GDPR, but there are public sectors in which this is an urgent matter, and we are not using this kind of data that this private company had and continue to process. The interoperability, it's another point that I would like to point out. Just because in the data strategy there's written that interoperability has to be enhanced somehow, and the fact that European Commission recognized that we are not using interoperability in the framework of data sharing or in the framework of exercise of personal data rights. The European Commission is recognizing it, but is attributing this situation to the lack of economic incentives. And I want to express my opinion on that. I mean, I suppose that before creating a cloud, an European cloud center, as the data strategy states, we should think about competition law and about the possibility for Europe to have a format. Because the format of documents, of files, of the containers in which personal data are stored are right now decided by companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google. Those kind of companies would have are ruling de facto the way in we are sharing our data. And if Europe it's not able to establish a format of a file, it's not possible to think that Europe can establish the new cloud provider, getting in the competition with Google or Amazon that are leader and that actually started this market. So, I mean, this is a thing that I thought I would have found inside the data strategy, the possibility of have legal clarity on what kind of format we have to use in order to share data. But this is a thing that was left to technical person to who is graduated in IT, and it is an occasion that is lost right now. I hope in the future we can have this kind of conversation again, and we'll find out that Europe has created a format to share data. But I mean, there are other triggers. I repeat, feel free to interrupt me when you want. There are imbalances in the market power right now. And as, okay, one moment. Okay, I'll reading. Regarding data for Lindsay Frost is saying that regarding data formats, she is working on standard for exchanging all of kind of data from Etsy, but it's not feasible to find just one format. I can explain, but I need a big discussion. I know, I don't know if we have time for that, but as you can see, yeah, if you are working on that, there's this urgency to work on that. So in some way, I suppose that you agree with me that this is a discussion that we have to have on an European level, on a policy level. We can have a discussion on that. It can be very interesting to even have a webinar on that, because data strategy can give us inputs in order to organize other discussion on other topics. And this is one of the most highlighted issues in the data strategy. And that is why I wanted to highlight the possibility to have a unique format for data interoperability. Because if we talk about authenticity, integrity, the structure, then we have to provide a solution. Europe has to provide a solution, because if Europe doesn't provide a solution, the market will provide a solution. And we don't know if the market is able to do that, respecting our rights. Empowering individuals. Empowering individuals, it's something really important for us as a consortium in ngiot. We had a deliverable on end user engagement, and we analyzed and studied deeply the possibility to have an empowerment of individuals. Okay, one moment. Okay, there's another sentence that Lindsay Frost just shared with us, and there are excellent successes in Inspired program, and it's very slow and it's voluntary. Yeah, that is why I wanted to highlight that Europe can perform this activity in order to guide us and to enhance the interoperability through establishing a format, or even financing someone or some consortium that can do that. But still, this is an important discussion, and I'm happy that triggered a debate. I was talking about empowering. We had some researches, and we found out, we are not the only one, the Professor Anna Salbrost too found out with other projects that empowering of individuals is based on the possibility to increase the competencies of individuals. And even IoT, even if those tools are not totally understood by the end users, when the end user find out that with the usage of IoT, their competencies, their skill increase, even in a cultural way, even in a cultural point of view, even in a museum, they start to use the IoT. They start to feel safe in the usage of IoT. So if this works for IoT, it can work for older structure like web, like apps, like smartphones. Skills and data literacy and empowering individuals are not two separate topics. There are ways in order for getting those topics together. IoT is one of them. Cybersecurity, and I would like to conclude with cybersecurity because an hour is past, and I thank you very much for your attention, but we would like to have this conversation with you right now. So I will stop myself in order for you to participate. I want to talk about cybersecurity just to understand that data strategy and cybersecurity are not only for us to be considered something that regard businesses, small and medium or big businesses, it doesn't matter. It doesn't regard only businesses. What I didn't find in the data strategy regards the possibility to have cyber warfare. Right now in Italy, we are in our houses. We are all working from our homes, which is a risk. Because a cybersecurity attack yesterday could have brought to their knees some companies, but the physical possibility of getting the business continuity running again was still present. Right now, denial of service can vaporize an entire business. So cybersecurity, an entire business which is getting essential service to the population. So right now, cybersecurity is not only a matter of protecting personal data, of protecting the business. Cybersecurity right now, it's something that protects us as individuals, as citizens, as a user of those services that we need in order to feel free and in order even to live somehow. Today, an attack on some healthcare structure could lead to death of people in the situation that Italy is living. So we have to consider cybersecurity as the fundamental topic of the data strategy, even if it's not that fundamental in the data strategy framework, but we have to consider it in order to survive. And we know that European Union is trying with all the forces that it got to provide us a legislative framework in order to enhance cybersecurity in the business. But in Italy, and not only in Italy, we have to deal with the possibility that every single effort that that companies are making in order to be compliant with cybersecurity norms and cybersecurity legislative framework can be considered useless, because public administration is not getting compliant with that and posing at risk the possibility to exchange data with the state. And I want to conclude thanking you all, the Italians, with a virtual hugs, because we are dealing with a very bad situation right now, every one of us. And I would like to tell you something. That I think it's important as human being, just stay focused and be careful, because what is happening in Italy is very dangerous. And I know that you come from different countries, but I mean, let's stay human and be careful on what is happening, because what is happening here, it's very bad, that we don't want that to happen in your countries too. So everyone be careful, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Francesco. We had Alexander Berlin that wrote a comment mentioning that IOF is working together with Fireware, IoT, and Etsy to build a central repository for data formats in order to make the first spot to go for solution developers and reuse existing formats and to develop even more. I don't know if you want to comment on that. Otherwise, we open the floor for questions.
No, no further comment. I'm not doing it myself. It's mainly Harald Zundmaker who's doing it from our side, who's very active there with Fireware. I think it will be also a major topic, obviously, on the Fireware Summit in Malaga. So yeah, so it is taken up, but I know that that's very difficult.
Thank you. Do we have somebody who wants to intervene with a comment or a question?
Hi, this is Olavi so from Brussels. Well, I don't know how concrete we want to be here, but you mentioned interoperability. Probably some of you know, for example, the minimal interoperability mechanisms, or MIMs, which are coming from the Open and Agile Smart Cities or OASC network, and which have been validated in the Synchronicity large-scale pilot. I think that is, for example, a very interesting concrete point to start from. I don't know if you are still there, Lindsay. I mean, maybe it would be interesting to hear your view on this, you know, from the Etsy point of view. For example, you have been working with very concrete, well, it has become the basis of the MIM1 actually on the context information management. So just to say that indeed there are very good concrete starting points, and of course this is also in the center of the Joint Boost Sustain Declaration, for example, which has been launched by the Finnish presidency, and where the MIMs are indeed technically in the center. So I think that these are interesting points to look into, and of course also I hope that you will be contributing to the consultation on the data strategy, as well as the other consultations which have been launched. But certainly very good for you to have the webinar. Thank you.
I would really like to thank you for participating and for giving us your opinion on that. And thank you again.
Thank you, Olavi. Do we have any other comment or intervention from the floor? If we do not have comments or intervention, and before giving the final word to Francesco as co-organizer of this webinar, I think that our idea also was to plan on a second webinar also to read together the white paper on artificial intelligence. So we will continue on that, and we will update you on our next initiatives. And therefore, I give the floor to Francesco to conclude.
Okay, I'll conclude thanking you all, and we will hear us again for the next webinar. And thank you very much for participating.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing it. Thank you.
And if you want to have the slides, just drop us an email, okay?
Yeah, and also if I can say something else now. I think that if you would like to have some ideas on how to make better this webinar, your contribute will be really helpful for us to create and enjoy more this time together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You guys.
Thank you.